Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to a new show here on AI. This is going to be called the Season Review Show, and it's going to be co-hosted by myself and my guest at this time, Nina. How are you doing, Nina?
I'm good, thank you. It feels very strange to be in the guest seat because usually, I do all the questioning around here. So.
It is strange. I have to get used to that myself as well. But yeah, as we say, this will be a season review one. Me and Nina are going to host various AI contributors. We're going to put a couple of them together for the show. And how else to start off is myself and Nina. So Nina, your overall thoughts on the season? It's been a up and down one, I think it's fair to say.
It has been, and I think overall, when you look at the kind of the expectations that you had going into the season as well, and people thought, oh, Liverpool will finish fourth. I remember some of the top pundits saying, oh, Liverpool will finish fourth. People thought, that's it, it'll be Chelsea and Manchester City. And you kind of look at how the season went, and Liverpool winning 2 trophies, they were in for the quadruple. Overall, I know at the end you sit there and you kind of think, we missed on 2 biggies, but you have to just sit here at the end and kind of be incredibly proud of the season that we've had, because I will always compare it to the season previous, where I was just constantly disappointed with the results, the performances, the injuries, like everything that could have gone horribly wrong for us did. And I'll compare it to that season constantly. And the fact that Liverpool won 2 trophies, they were in chance to win 4, I think it was just fine margins of just Liverpool not having that nearly perfect season. But I think also, maybe on the flip side to that, maybe it's a little bit of a blessing, because it definitely looks like Liverpool do have to add a little bit more into this squad. Not much, just a little bit more to just take them to the next level. And you know what? You have to kind of hold your hands up and say we are up against a horrible beast in Manchester City, because I genuinely do believe that this Liverpool side is probably one of the best that a lot of Liverpool fans have seen, even the older ones.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, in my lifetime, the only ones that compare to it is Klopp's. It's Klopp's other team. So yeah, it's a strange one. But it's been a season of many memorable matches. Have you got a favourite one?
I was thinking about this, right? And the one that everyone will talk about is the one that I didn't watch because you were covering. So I'm going to go for the one that I did watch. So I'm talking about the Man United 5-0 thrashing. Which I didn't get to watch. And you know what? You got to host both of the Man United matches, didn't you? You did both of the post-match shows, which I was actually quite jealous about. So I'm going to go with the one that we played quite recently, and the 4-0 at Anfield, purely because, first of all, I watched the game, also the time frame that it was in as well. For anyone that doesn't know, that game took place during Ramadan. So all day I was calm and I was zen and I was, in a really high peak state mentally, and then that game comes on and I just turned incredibly tribal. And it was probably one of those games that I've been fantasizing about when I was a young kid, saying how I'd like to just absolutely crush Man United, because they were the thorn in my side growing up, even in my in my adult years as well. And that game just sort of, for me, I don't know, was quite symbolic in terms of where we are and where they are. I mean, Luis Diaz opening up the scoring. I mean, I remember that game. United, they didn't even try or test us the once. And I sit there, and then obviously Mo Salah with 2 and Sadio Mane. But it was routine. It was like a training exercise. And obviously I have a lot of Man United supporters in my family and people that I know. And I just remember just those 2 games in general, but the one that I actually watched, it was quite satisfying for me to watch, even though United are nowhere near where they were. But, the fact that they kind of bought like Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho, they really bolstered up their squad. And you kind of look at how it, on aggregate, we beat them 9-0.
It's fun, though, isn't it? It's always great. So I grew up just after the Danny Murphy ones where he scored every game for some reason.
Yes.
So this is kind of the first time. Yeah, so Rafa just couldn't be bothered beating them until we beat them 4-1 at Old Trafford. That was about it, I think. So this season's been great. But that game was also on my birthday as well, so that was a really nice day for me.
Oh, yeah, I completely forgot. Yes, and you know what a legend Guy Drinkel is, because obviously it was just such a really bad time because of Ramadan, but this guy stepped up and hosted that show on his birthday. And you know what, Klopp gifted you 3 points, and awesome stuff. Usually really always lose on my birthday, so you're quite a lucky one there.
I don't know. I think the last birthday I remember having a game on was the Aston Villa semi-final, so maybe not. But at least that's wiped that memory away. But have you got a favourite moment from the season?
Oh man, right. I'm going to have to say my favourite moment was, like, obviously I host the post-match Nina Kauser show, and me and my guests, we always kind of fantasize at the beginning of the season of a Joel Matip goal. And, you see those marauding runs from centre back into midfield. And then when he gets into the final third, he kind of loses control of his limbs. And I think for me, it has to be when he finally brought that duck against Leeds United. It was just, it was a joyous occasion. I adore that guy, and he's had quite an interesting season as well. I felt like he kind of fell off a little, but he's been chipping in with the goals. But for me, that was probably I think I laughed more than celebrated. He took it quite well. He's actually scored quite some all right goals this season. Actually, they've not been too shoddy. But yeah, Joel Matip finally knowing what to do in the opposition box was quite a memorable one for me. I can't lie. I think there's been loads of iconic moments. I have to give a little side mention. Actually, it was pretty iconic. Was Alisson Becker mimicking Pickford.
Oh yes, that's a shout. That is a shout. That.
Yeah, because when you think of Alisson Becker, and he's got the nickname of Holy Goalie, and he seems like a righteous holy man, and he's just there taking the mick out of Pickford, and then the camera actually pans in and zooms in on Pickford's face. It's just iconic, a non-football related iconic moment for me.
Anything that disparages Jordan Pickford or Richarlison by extension.
Yes.
It's just the moment of the season, because 2 of the most hated, 2 of my personally most hated
players.
I
echo that. Cannot stand them.
Can't stand it. And he's been fighting with the Brazil team as well, which is
I believe so. Vinny Jr., right?
Yeah, which I don't mind. I don't think I'd be siding with Vinny Jr. after what he just did against us, but here we are.
Football and tribalism go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get on to the bad stuff then. It's not fun, but worst match and worst moment. I'm guessing they're going to be quite recent.
They are quite recent. So I was, again, you think about this, and like I've just alluded to at the beginning of the pod, it has been a really good season, and you have to be proud. 2 trophies, domestic cups. That myth has been busted that Jurgen Klopp does not take the cup seriously. I still don't. Not gonna lie, but I'm glad that we won 2. It's still a massive success. But you look back at, the 2 biggies that we didn't win, and I will go back to 2 games where we completely dominated, and had we, been more clinical with our finishing, things could have been very different this season. And of course, I'm talking about the first game was the Leicester City one. just after Christmas. And I look back to that, and people will look at, the Spurs game that we drew quite recently, or the draw against Man City, and kind of think, well, that's where we lost the league. For me, it was that kind of game that, had that been 3 points, because Liverpool were the dominating side, they had all the control. And that one for me could have definitely, could have been that was the game when I look back now, and I think maybe had we won that, things could have been very different. And I think the most recent has to be probably one of the most frustrating finals I've ever seen. Liverpool against Real Madrid. I think just how it went. Even from the starting. I didn't do a Euro incision. I was just too broken about it. I'm a bad loser like that. But even when you look at the starting lineup, and I looked at that starting lineup, and I was like, I think it would have been so much better if maybe a Firmino started and Diaz comes on later, because I just felt like they kept doubling up on him, and I felt like he kind of lost his way a little in that game. And I love Luis Diaz, but I just felt like it was just too much. I just felt like, when you play a team like Real Madrid, you really, really need to be in a position where you are clinical in front of goal. I think they've demonstrated that throughout the entire tournament in terms of how they got to the final. And, Liverpool faced them where I think it's fair to say that they haven't been clinical in front of goal. And, you look back at that, and it was just a deeply, deeply frustrating game. And, I do think Liverpool were the better side, certainly in the first half, kind of lost their way in the second. But I look at that game and I just think, oh, man, why did that happen again? One-off game. And had Liverpool been their usual self, where, pretty much everything they touch, pretty much ends up into the back of the net. And Courtois just having one of them games, as the game went on and he's making them saves, as hopeful as we are as Liverpool supporters, and you have to believe till the very end, you started watching some of them saves and you start thinking, and I was thinking it, maybe today isn't the day.
Yeah, I was with you there. I think as soon as they went one up, it was just like, oh, why is it Real Madrid?
Yes.
If it was any other team, you'd be like, we'd probably be all right. Because I think everyone was like, we don't want to play Man City in the final. And then as soon as Real Madrid won, everyone was like, oh, no, we have to play Real Madrid now.
They're just relentless. They don't stop. I mean, they give us a warning sign at, at the end of the first half where they scored a goal and it was offside. And, first of all, that final was just farcical. Everything was fundamentally wrong about it. The organisation, the fan treatment, it was absolutely disgusting. And for me, that kind of set the tone in terms of how this might pan out. And I watched the game with my nephew when he was like, obviously the delay. And I was just like, this doesn't look good and this won't feel good. And obviously the bogus announcement in the stadium that Liverpool fans have arrived late, and that's, just the whole bullshit of it. And I also feel like, I don't know, I'm not a trained psychologist. I don't know what goes through players' minds. But that, I do feel that maybe, I'm not making excuses for the way Liverpool played, but that must affect, the players, the staff, everything, and what's going on with our fans. It was just it was farcical. It was absolutely shocking by the organisers, and shame on UEFA and shame on,
French government,
the local authorities, and the French government, because it was awful. And it was just an overall shit show. And I hope questions get answered.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll go quiet. I think we've seen, well, it's the first time we've ever heard Billy Hogan speak, so that's probably something to be scared about. But yeah, I think that's going to be a lot of people's answers for that. It was just a horrid time. Back on the positive stuff, and this one was probably a lock in around January time, but in the second half of the season, a couple players stepped up, a couple players fell away, but Player of the Year, Nina, it might be a debatable one, or it might be quite straightforward.
It's really, really hard, right? Because you sit there and you think, well, he played well, and then he peaked. Because, Mo Salah started the season really well, and then slowly we saw a little peak in Sadio Mane's performances. Alisson Beckham, for me, has been pretty consistent all season. And then you buy a player like Diaz, who completely changed the complexion of our attack in January. I'm really, really excited to see what he brings. for the entire season. You know, he's been an absolute nightmare to play against. But I have to kind of look around, and I have to say the injury and the nature of injury that, you know, Thiago's been phenomenal as well, pulling the strings. But when I think of the nature of injury that Virgil van Dijk had, and maybe there were questions about what kind of player comes back, and will he be the same?
Yeah.
For me, his healing, his progression into getting fitness, I can't ignore that, and I can't discount that. He looks completely unfazed. You know, the fact that he got this very serious injury and he still came back being the best centre back in the world. You know, that is pretty incredible, and that's pretty remarkable. And I think from a consistent level, I have to give a shout out for that. And I think, again, Liverpool have just done apps. And again, he was a January signing as well. But I also have to give I have to give a massive special mention to Virgil van Dijk. For me, he has been incredible. And I just think it just shows what kind of player he is, and just what he leads. And I also feel like, you know, we've been very, very impressed with Ibrahima Konate. And I think those kind of players really, really settle when they've got a general in defence in a player like Virgil van Dijk. So I have to give a special nod to Virgil van Dijk. I know, you know, people always look at the attack and things, but last year we were just leaking goals. And I think Virgil van Dijk has been phenomenal. Also, if we're talking about half a player season kind of guy, I think you have to say Liverpool made the signing in terms of Luis Diaz. You can't ignore that. You know, that was probably the smartest business in the winter window.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, dragging Man City back to 14 points, I think it was. If he didn't sign in January, I think we would have still improved and maybe caught them up a bit, but I don't think the title race would have went anywhere near the last
Yeah.
But yeah, well, Van Dijk's an interesting shot. I wasn't expecting that one, but I think you're absolutely right. I think we do think, maybe it might just be me, but I think the fan base does take him for granted at times because, well, you just look at the impact. Even the games recently when it was Konate and Matip, we still looked a bit frazzled without him. So it's a really interesting shout. I reckon Dave might make that shout as well. I'm not sure who else will. But,
you know, I grew up appreciating centre-backs, and obviously we as Liverpool supporters have had the misfortune of seeing some very, very below par centre-backs. And like you said, people take it for granted. I don't think it's because, it's Virgil van Dijk. I think people just expect him to have that peak level of performance. Like I've hosted like many post-match shows, and you know, Virgil van Dijk always has a decent game, and sometimes we won't even talk about it because that is just the level that we expect from him. I think that's where we've come to now as Liverpool as a football club. You know, in terms of there are so many quality world-class players here that you expect that from them, and when they kind of fall off, that's when the microscope's on them, like, oh, you had a bad game today. You know, back in the day where, if, like, for example, no disrespect, but if Dejan Lovren had a good game, people would talk about it for weeks and weeks and weeks because it surprised you.
Yeah.
But this is Virgil van Dijk, and, you know, he is a quality centre-back. I've also really enjoyed the fact that for majority of the Champions League as well, he was kind of captain because Jordan Henderson was sort of featuring from the bench. I kind of really liked him leading the team out as a captain as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably not to disrespect Henderson, but we might see more and more of it considering the links. But we'll come on to the potential signings in a min. But yeah, favourite podcast you've either listened to from AI, or if you just want to plug a random podcast, feel free, Nina, or one that you've taken part in.
Oh, this is actually a really, really good one. I think the one that I kind of really enjoyed quite recently, and it just made me laugh, and it was probably it was the Gags and Cam podcast for the FA Cup, where they kind of like, you know, like you have vlogs, but they kind of podcasted the events of their day, and, you know, basically their tire going flat, and, you know, the guy that kind of assisted them at the garage was an Evertonian, and just their journey of the day, and, you know, Cam getting chased by stewards and having to take his top off. It was just typical Cam down to a T. And I'm not seeing Cam much this year, and just the fact that they had that kind of day, and it was Cam and Gags, and obviously them lot all meeting up with everyone, and also the fact that it was maybe an enjoyable pod in a sense that because Liverpool actually won a trophy, but I had a lot of laughs listening to that because Cam was just being himself, and you wouldn't have him any other way, and Gags just constantly just taking the piss out of him. So for me, I really, really enjoyed that podcast, just purely because it was light entertainment in a football sense. But I think that, there's been so many great podcasts. I think AI Scouted has just been absolutely phenomenal. When you don't know anything about a team, those two lads always step up and really, spill the tea on who we're playing. I think, I also think, Rival Recon and Harinder getting in his guest to sort of really, really speak in depth about, their respective team has been great. But for me, for my personal thing, I've just really enjoyed hosting the Nina Kauser show back again. This season has been difficult for me for personal reasons. And, you were very good to kind of take over because I just was not feeling the football or the content. I have to be completely real. And towards the end, some of the guests that I've had, Themis on Euro Incision as well, the guests that I've had on Nina Kauser show, the football that's that was being played by the Reds as well, kind of, I don't know, reignited that spark again for me. So, it's because you work with good people, you have a good team, and so, and that podcast with Gags as well, just it was almost like I was there with them because they are so stupid.
Yes, they are. Listening to Cam on the main pod is fun. But yeah, it's been an odd season. I know you've gone through your personal stuff as well. I won't bring up what it actually was, but yeah, it's great that you're back in love with football again and hopefully in the right mindset. But before we finish, we do have to take a little look at next season, Nina. Transfer window. It's all the jazz, but expectations for this transfer window and what that leads on to next season. What do you want from next season as well?
I think one thing that I kind of highlight, when I said we just need a little bit of reinforcement into the team, nothing like stupid crazy, you never look at this team and think, after that final, I wasn't one of them thinking, oh, all these players need binning and I need a brand new squad. I'm not that reactionary fan. First of all, I hate the transfer window because I just think it's rumour mill. I think one thing that was very, very apparent for me, Guy, was in that final, there was a lot of crosses, but I felt like we were truly, truly lacking maybe a proper number 9. A proper centre forward. I feel like we're very, very clinical in wide areas. We just need somebody who's going to be really, really aggressive. As a centre forward, I think that is an area that we need to address most definitely. I know we're being. I've seen the links to Lewandowski. I just think he might be a little bit old, and his player profile might not be that of what we look for right now. I know we signed Thiago, but he's a little bit younger. I think we definitely need a centre forward. I'm sure Carl Matchett and Dave Hendrick will have some names and some lists, but I definitely think a centre forward. I think the attack is decent. It's kind of heartbreaking because you're seeing obviously links with like people like Sadio Mane leaving. I think there's rumours about Mo Salah next season as well. But I guess this is football, right? You have to just keep reinventing yourself. And, they have been, Sadio Mane has been an excellent servant to Liverpool. I also quite like the link to Rafinha from Leeds United. I really do like that one. I think that's one that I think Liverpool fans have been kind of eyeballing for, at least a season. I think that one seems realistic, and it seems like it's that kind of player that Jurgen Klopp would look at, and he might actually fit our system. But I think definitely more in an attacking sense, that would be absolutely grand for me. Just in that regard, also maybe. I think, there was also the Tchouaméni, kind of a backup or a kind of a player to play with Fabinho. I think he might be going to Real Madrid.
Yeah,
I think we might lose out on that one. But I think maybe I think we just need like little backups. I think Cavalia's coming from Fulham as well. I'm quite excited about him because he's more of a number 10. It might change the dynamics of how we field in the midfield as well. It's just going to be really interesting. But I definitely think we need a a proper target man in the box if we're going to be launching putting a load of nice crosses in.
Yeah, I think that'll be quite a popular answer once we go through these. But next season, it's obviously a tough one with Man City signing Haaland. They signed that Argentinian kid as well, and obviously they'll spend 80 mil on fullbacks because that's what they do. But as you say, we're linked with people. We had such a strong 2022, whereas they fell off a bit. Is it just going to be another one where we at least hope for a title challenge, and then it's basically luck that decides it?
Well, again, like you look back at this season and, like you said, Man City were 14 points ahead of us. And, I spoke about that Leicester City game where we lost. And at that point, I threw in the towel thinking, we can't chase this. Like they are just too good. And like you said, they kind of had a bit of a wobble in 2022. I don't think they are as infallible as, people say they are. Don't get me wrong, they are going to get stronger, evidently. I still think that gives me hope though. The fact that, they did drop some points and they can be a little bit careless and they do have vulnerabilities. And I do think that this team and even Pep as well is probably guilty of overthinking things. I think and when you look back at season, it's just that, had we beat Leicester City or had we beat,
Brighton or Brentford.
Brighton and Brentford, those stupid draws that we had. It's just ifs and buts. I think Man City are very, very strong, but I think Liverpool just have to focus on what they have to do and kind of win and, win their games and apply as much pressure on Man City, because one thing I think we can all agree on, they don't like the pressure. And, Liverpool have beaten them to the league in the past. It's just about how Liverpool kind of start off. And that was the reason why actually Liverpool won the league in 2020 was because Liverpool started off the season so well. And obviously this season, what kind of factored in for us was a few of those silly little draws, but also the injuries in midfield as well. I wasn't watching football, but I had my eye on the fact that, there were some injuries at the beginning of the season. And, a lot of it's luck, isn't it? And I think every time Liverpool seasons have kind of slightly derailed, it has been due to injuries.
Yeah, I think it has as well. I think the injuries, I'm pretty sure we played Milner and Naby in midfield 3 games in a row, which, yeah, it's... I
am so glad you covered them games.
yeah, it was fun. The Brighton one where we were 2-0 up and Naby got injured. It was really fun, that one. But yeah, that is it. I mean, that's it. But stick around because the second half, it'll be Nina in the hosting seat and I'll be answering these questions as well. But we might just put the ad in here because it'll be cleaner. But we'll be back in a sec.
Hey guys, welcome back to a special AI Pro Plus podcast, the season review. Myself and Guy Drinkel have just switched seats. I'll be hosting and he will be answering all the questions. So I gave it away, Guy. Welcome back as a guest.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, long time.
I'm good. It's been good in the last 5 minutes whilst I was waiting for the file to convert.
Happy days. Right. Okay. So I'm sure listeners have listened to the first little part of the podcast. Now it's your turn. It's only fair. If you dish out the questions, you're going to have to do some answering. So, Guy, this season, your thoughts on it? It's been a very interesting season. I think, like you said, it has been a bit of an emotional roller coaster. It's almost like that famous quote from The Godfather: just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. It's been one of those seasons. So you know what? Enough about me. People know how I felt about the season. Your turn.
Yeah, I think roller coaster is the right term for it. I think you mentioned on yours, the Leicester game was when you gave up. It was probably the Chelsea draw just before AFCON for me, where it's just we're falling so far behind. But the second half of the season, we won 2 cups. We dragged a 14 lead back to 1. It was basically mental. Like it just was the fact that we dragged in Man City. Like, I don't think it's the strongest version of Man City. We've seen better. I think the Sane team from years back was better. But to do what we did, bring in new players. I mean, Diaz obviously gets a lot of the headlines, but to see the development of someone like Ibu Konate, and you just think, wow, we've gone from Skirtle, Lovren, Sacco, whoever, legend Clavan, and now Konate was our third choice centre back for most of the season. It just look at the development we've made, but it's before May, the season was just ramping up to be one of the most special in anyone's lifetime, not just mine. And then the last two games happened, and it's just ended on such a damp squib. It's so weird to have such a promising season end the way it does. But I think as longer the summer goes on and the longer I reflect on it, it'll come back as a happy season more than anything. But it's just the fact that our two biggest negatives, which is obviously one of the questions, was the last two games of the season. It just kind of hit you once, and then, as we'll get into, the Champions League final was such a mess for many different reasons. It hits you twice in the space of a week. It was just a horrible week. But no, it was a really good season. But we just have to get over that last week.
We really do, and I think people always reflect on the last, the last month and the last two games, which we'll talk to about in a minute. But you kind of summarise the season pretty well, and in terms of the peak of Liverpool, I did mention this on my section, but I want to get your thoughts on this. But April, where people looked at that and thought, that's Liverpool season done. They are going to get absolutely frazzled here with all the games that Liverpool had to play and the big games that Liverpool had to play as well. Like there was some semi-finals in there, yada, yada, yada. There was just so much going on. But I think April was like maybe where the belief was really, really high as a Liverpool supporter, and just watching the Reds. And I think a lot of opposition supporters and, the media as well were kind of hoping this is where the wheels fall off for Liverpool. So I think that maybe that was probably the height of the heights for Liverpool. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, it's a strange one. I'm just looking up when Man City played Tottenham. I can't remember what month that was in. That was in February, so a bit earlier than that. But I think when Man City started dropping points, that's kind of for me when the belief came back in. But April, we had semi-final, quarter-final. Yes. We had so many mad games. It was just it was strange because I can't remember who we played, but didn't we play United, Everton? Was it Spurs? 3 in a row, something like that. And I think we had another game in there. And then we had the Champions League stuff, the FA Cup stuff. Yeah. And I think it was the start of April where people were saying we could have played Man City 4 times in a row, something like that. And everyone was just like, oh, God, one game's bad enough against Man City. But it fortunately didn't bloody happen. But yeah, April was the hard one. But I think when you see results like the Man United one, which was just funny, which we mentioned on your half of the show, it's the stresses of football, and obviously you cover all the Premier League games, and I cover Raw as well, so we're always kind of engrossed in the game on multiple levels. It's not just as a fan. You're probably taking notes. I have to stay on for an hour and then edit stuff for another half an hour afterwards. So we're kind of just like, this is going to be a long night. Yeah. So when stuff goes to extra time, like both the cup finals, when they went to extra time, it was like, oh God, I just wanted to be done. But yeah, it was the April was a tough month, but at least we avoided the 4 repeat of Man City games.
Absolutely, yeah. It definitely was a very interesting month, and so many games. I just remember, like, you couldn't digest one result and then it was another game. But this is what happens, I suppose, when you literally have to play every game that is humanly possible in a season, and the Reds did it. So you know what, shout out to them. Guy, your favourite match. Now, you have been covering a lot of post-match shows. Certainly at the beginning of the season, you stepped in a fair bit for myself. I can't thank you enough. and obviously you've watched a lot of games. Sometimes you didn't take notes, which is quite a nice little luxury to have, not gonna lie. So you actually watch it like a fan who's supporting the team rather than being all analytical. So Guy Drinkel, it's been a memorable season, but what has been your favourite match?
I think it's the semi-final against Man City. Ooh. I think just the level we played at in that first half was something I've not seen from us, like, ever. And Thiago was just basically filth in that game. Because I know Man City didn't play their strongest team, but it was strong enough. They still had £100 million players on and stuff like that. But Thiago basically took the piss. And the way we controlled it, I know Man City came back into it, but it never really felt like we were going to lose it. It was a special one. It links onto my favourite podcast one later on as well. But covering the cup games, when Eddie asked me at the start of the season, like, we don't normally do Raw for the cup games because we're usually out by the third round. Do you want to do them? Because Trev and Dave can't be bothered, basically. I was like, oh, yeah, fine, I'll do 3 podcasts. Why not? And then it ended up being all of them. All of the podcasts. But
you just mentioned there, did we play Man City in the league before that?
Yes.
And that's what I was like, imagine if it was the other way around. I remember sitting there thinking, like, the way we absolutely battered them in that first half. Oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah, because it was, if I remember correctly, the league game was it was played at a really high level, but it was quite even at the same time, whereas the cup game, it was just us, especially the first half, just dominating. So it was like almost not chalk and cheese, but it was showing the levels that we can get to if we play at our best.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's probably my favourite one, because let's be honest, beating Man United nowadays, like, we see Crystal Palace do it for fun. It's not, but it is like I think they lost to Crystal Palace on the last game, and nobody even talked about it because it was just like, well, yeah, Palace are probably better. But yeah, beating that Man City team in the way we did, that was a special game for me.
I like that. Again, something that I've just completely forgotten. I remembered it, but like, I like that shout. It's a bit of a hipster shout, and I think a lot of people enjoyed that. And also, it's also worth noting as well, that result absolutely, the scoreline absolutely, in my opinion, flattered Man City, because in that first half, it was a joke. It was just such easy watching, and even like you said, when they scored them goals, I was calm. I was just like, no, it's okay, we're cool, we're good. But yes, that semi-final, the way Liverpool came out, full-on aggression, you love to see it. Right, Guy Drinkel, so that was your favourite match. What was your favourite moment? Now, I did something, didn't I? I spoke about a favourite moment on and off the pitch. I mean, it's up to you. You go wherever you want to go.
Well, I've kind of got one that's almost off the pitch, and one that's out the stadium. I think my favourite moment was Kepa getting subbed on for Chelsea in for the penalty shootout.
Yes.
I was like, Mendy was their man of the match the entire game. And then I saw Kepa come and I was like, I know he's done all right in penalty shootouts before, but Mendy's like 12 foot tall and massive. So just like, cool. Yeah. And then it got around to, well, keepers taking penalties. I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be narrative football type stuff. But I mean, Kelleher taking the pen, and I don't think anyone expected it to get that far. Although we have had long penalty shootouts in the past. I mean, the Borough one where it went to about 20 all or something like that. But yeah, I think a mix of Kepa getting subbed on and the meme that became, and Kelleher scoring his penalty. Of course, I think we all like the domestic cups as Liverpool fans, but we crave the Premier League and the Champions League. But this season's almost made us fall back in love with the domestic cups, and the fact that our keeper scored the winning penalty to get the League Cup, it was almost too magical a moment.
And of course, Tsimikas for the FA Cup as well.
Yes,
exactly. The the unusual heroes that, you know, kind of saw us over the finish line. Yeah, I love the fact that Kepa got subbed on to save a penalty, and he actually didn't save a single penalty, and then I think skied his, which was quite hilarious. It's somewhere in the orbit with Lovren's, but that's another podcast for another day. Guy, you've kind of alluded to this, like, worst match.
Yeah, I think my worst match and worst moment will be different. I think my worst match was the Wolves game, the last game of the season, because Man City were losing and we weren't winning. And that just put me in such a horrid position. I was basically arguing with my dad, told him to F off. I ended up going upstairs to watch the rest of the game. So basically that was that for me. And just the stress of when we won, Man City were winning. It was just like, can I not have 10 minutes of fucking fun on this day?
Yeah. Even if we got that against Brighton, right, a few seasons ago, we had 5 minutes of, like, I don't know, pure joy and ecstasy.
Absolutely.
I love that shout, and I actually was going to mention that the fact that it was never in our hands. Like, even though Villa were doing their bit, we weren't doing ours. But
absolutely. That just made it worse for me. It was just the fact, if we just pissed through Wolves and then it was like, oh, great, and then Man City... Actually, no, that probably would have made it more of an Aguero moment, which might have been more annoying. It may have worked out for the better, but at the time, it was basically heartbreaking. And, yeah, I swore at my dad, so that's kind of not good.
Terrible.
Yes. Plus, he's a big dude. He could beat me up, so, you know. But, yeah, that was just a horrid day for me, and it almost made me, like, just not asked about the Champions League because I was just so down for that week.
Oh, well, you know what? It's a good job we do podcasting, because I'm sure Guy Drinkel would have had 2 black eyes there. But
yes.
It's very nice, Dad. But yeah, no, that is a good shout, because I remember Mo Salah scored and he thought we'd done good, and I think I saw it on social media, somebody sort of actioned him with their fingers that what score it is over at the Etihad. So yeah, and then he just looked completely frazzled by what he had heard, or, you know, what the fan gesture him. So that was your worst moment.
That was my worst match. My worst moment, it is Paris, and it's not the game itself. I think when it was announced that the game was going to be delayed, then you hop onto Twitter and you see you see the videos, you see people getting... Firstly, you saw the stories saying I've been pepper sprayed and stuff like that, we're getting crushed, etc. And then as the night goes on, you see the videos, and I'm sure everyone's seen the one where that lad's literally just trying to scan his ticket and gets pepper sprayed. I think the more... Yeah, absolutely. And that's the worst moment for multiple reasons, because the bullshit that's happening outside, you're like, what the fuck are they doing? This is France. This is France. The original final was meant to be in Russia. How is France less safe than Russia at the minute? It's just absurdly stupid that is the case. And then what that meant for the game, it almost made the game pointless, because you're just like, the thousands of people who went there, especially the older ones, they'll be linking back to Hillsborough and stuff like that, and then you're thinking, this has already had a half an hour delay. Robert, you mentioned on your part, some of the players might have heard about their fans, so like Robbo had friends and family get affected by it. Matip's brother's wife, who was pregnant or something, got caught up in it. So I do think that had an effect on the game, but it just almost made the game feel dead. Pointless.
Secondary, right? Secondary.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you just felt, if we won, we'll celebrate it and stuff like that. It'll be marked the couple of days after. Everyone will go to the parade, everyone will be happy, but the day after, it'll be like, what the fuck are you doing, France? Sort your shit. And I think we saw the same in a rugby game this weekend. But we lost. And my first thought wasn't, oh no, we've lost the Champions League, like it was in Kiev. It was like, those horrid bastards.
Yeah.
Horrid bastards. Like the game, I was bothered we lost, but it wasn't my first thought.
It's so true, because obviously I'm in a group chat with Harinder, Gags and Cam, and obviously listeners will know that they were all in Paris, as so many people were, and so many of our contributors on AI were, and I just remember messaging them saying, you know what, the result's secondary, just get home safe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, you saw all of it. I think they did the old school the other day. I was walking the dog in the hill, which was a fun day, listening to stories of how, I think it was Tom, how he basically got pepper sprayed, he was getting crushed and stuff like that. It's just like, this is France. This is the capital. I think it's Saint-Denis, technically, not Paris, but it's basically the capital of France. Yeah. How is it that bad? How is it that badly policed? It's almost scary, and I'm not surprised you've heard many people say, I won't go to European away games anymore, especially won't go to European Cup finals.
Awful. Absolutely awful. Little kids having to witness that, absolutely traumatized, you know. It's absolutely disgusting, and shame on, I think we've mentioned it before, shame on, the French government, the authorities, and UEFA as well. And yeah, questions will be asked and they will have to provide the answers. I think that'll be a lot of people, one of their worst moments. And we've not really spoke to any other podcaster yet, but I think that goes high in terms of a horrible feeling in terms of football. Right, Guy, we're going to take it back to a little bit of a positive now. Your player of the year, if Guy Drinkel could present an award.
I think it has to be more. Mm-hmm. Like, Alisson was good for all of the season, whereas Mo, after AFCON, he was still good, but he wasn't Mo Salah good. Yeah. But the level he reached pre-AFCON was something we've not seen at this club since Luis Suarez was here.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen Mo Salah, the machine in front of goal, where in his first season where he scored 40-odd goals. And we've seen Salah kind of develop into a more rounded player where he does more creativity and stuff. But this season, it was a combination of the goal machine, the creator, the dribbling around Man City, people like they weren't there. It's just, the level he reached was something special. And I'm blaming AFCON for ruining that. Which is a joke, which will get me in trouble with Senegal people, apparently, according to Mana. But yeah, the level he reached was just something special. And we'll probably come onto it on the transfer bit at the end, but more is probably priority number one for me this summer. But yeah, more Salah for me. Like, Alisson's up there. I think Trent's up there. I like Virgil Van Dyke shout. Fabinho kind of tailed off towards the end a bit, in my opinion, as well. But I think it's between more. Yeah,
towards the end, absolutely. I wasn't even judging them for who they were. Just like, you are probably absolutely spent. But yeah, no, I think a lot of people will agree with the Mo Salah shout, and I think people will forget what kind of player he was before the AFCON, and obviously, you know, losing the AFCON final, and then obviously Egypt not making the World Cup as well, losing to Senegal again. You know, I think those things probably really affect him, because, you know, I think a lot of people kind of forget that what representing your country means to players from, you know, the African continent. And, you know, there's a huge honour in it, you know, like, we shouldn't disregard what it means to them. And, you know, Mo Salah, I mean, you look at the disappointment that he had when Egypt actually made the World Cup, and he was injured for it because of what happened in the Kiev final, you know. He's had a lot of, he's been quite unlucky with his national team. But yeah, for Liverpool, he has been absolutely sensational. And I love the fact that, you know, there was always that tweet going around for many years, and even this season as well. This player's done this, and only Mo Salah has more. You know?
Yeah.
Only Mo Salah.
It's just crazy to me. Like, people still compare him to Hazard and stuff like that, but if he stays, and I think everyone wants him to stay, regardless of angry people on Twitter, people are gonna have to, and not just not Liverpool fans, neutral fans are gonna have to blow past the Hazard stuff. I'm not saying he's better than Thierry Henry and stuff like that, but we want him in conversations with Thierry Henry, and the only way he's going to be doing that is if he stays. And if he keeps this level, yeah, we'll see. But I think he's blown past people like Hazard for me.
Absolutely. Like, it's a shame you can't see my face right now, but it's screwed up. Like, how, you know, like the disrespect that he gets from opposition fans. He doesn't get the respect, does he?
No,
you know, he just does not get the respect, and I don't know why that is. But whatever, you don't have to respect him. He'll just keep delivering the goods, because for some reason he's always in the conversation for, you know, the Golden Boots, the best player of the season. But by all means, you guys ignore him. It's all
absolutely.
good.
It's crazy. It is crazy. It's just, I think it is a Liverpool thing because Trent can't defend, Van Dijk's finished, Moore's not as good as Eden Hazard, whatever. It's weird that we're the only team who can compete with Man City, though, isn't it?
Absolutely, and yeah, I could not agree more. And I'm with you. You know, I would like more Salah at the club because he is absolutely sensational. Right, Guy Drinkel, a personal one for you now. AI podcast that you've enjoyed listening to or you've enjoyed hosting. You've kind of alluded to it. I'm a little bit intrigued as well. So give us the backstory, set the scene. I'm going to have a sip of my tea whilst you talk.
Right, my favourite one is, again, it's my favourite game, is the FA Cup semi-final. And the reason is, I got to host Trev, which is rare. Like, has anyone ever heard Trev be a guest on a podcast before? I think he's done it once with John Buskell, and I think that is it on AI. So I'm all for that. So I was the honoured guest host to be able to do that, and obviously Dave was there. So I got to host, I think they call themselves Nav and Squared. So the fact that I got to host Dave on a cup thing, which was honour in itself because he couldn't be bothered with the cups, but to have Trev as a guest, and obviously he's the best host in the business, let's be honest. But to get him as a guest and the way he can talk about the game, and obviously his voice is basically just Ireland personified. It was really great, and it was on Discord. It was fun. I think everyone enjoyed the two Irish lads and the interaction there, and the game itself. We mentioned it there. The fact that we played so well, it just allowed them both to wax lyrical, and I did my best trying to hold it together. But when you've got Dave there, who kind of takes over shows on his own, but Trevor's kind of backseat hosting as well. It was almost the easiest podcast to host as well.
I love it. And yeah, Trev, yeah, he's a phenomenal host. But you know, those guys, you know, coming out for you know, it's the FA Cup semi-final, right? So you know, them guys coming out, you hosting them, and you know, you have a really, really great chemistry with them anyway, because you do a lot of the Raw podcasts. I know you produce and record the AI Scouted. So did you feel like you had to kind of, because one thing I've noticed with like Trev is when I listen to the Raw podcast, which is also a phenomenal podcast, by the way, I love listening to it, but he kind of sets the scene for each minute that kind of got played and the key moments. Was there pressure on you to kind of up your hosting game, or did you just let it just naturally, organically happen?
I don't think I got a word in, to be honest with you. I had my notes. It was like minute 1, we're good. Minute 7, we're good. And then it's kind of, I forgot to take notes because I was just watching the game. And then when I come to Trev, he's like, oh, did you miss this? Minute 2, minute 3, minute 4. I'm like, well, you hosted that. But no, he kind of just kept me in line. As I said, it was really easy with Trevor. I think the first thing he said on the pod was, I may backseat host this, and then 2 seconds later we spoke over each other, and that's kind of how it went. But it was in such a fun way. But yeah, if we have another big cup run again and get to the later stages, which I hope we do, not at the detriment of the Premier League or Champions League, which I'm sure many would prefer to win, but it'd be great to get them back together, because for the FA Cup final, Dave was on holiday or busy. I can't remember what he was doing, but not to badmouth Stephen, who was on. But it was really fun hosting them too, and it was so easy, as I said.
Wonderful. We love that, and long may it continue. Yeah, and you got Trev as a guest as well, like you said, so you can be smug there in your little seat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not every day, but yeah, those 2 guys, they're all excellent. Right. I call it silly season, but we have to address it. And I kind of touched on, you know, this subject myself. It's something that I don't like to really get too involved in, because I truly believe that we never know what Liverpool are doing. They are quite a tight ship, which is quite a good thing. So transfer window, hopes and expectations, Guy. What do you expect from Liverpool this season? Where do you think they need strengthening? Obviously, I've spoken about what I think. You know, what observations have you made from the season?
I can't believe you don't have Paul Joyce on notifications, Nina. That's all I'm saying.
I know. I love the fact that he'll tweet and I have to check it to make sure it's a legit one.
It's apart from the transfer season, it's literally him retweeting someone else's article and then like, oh, and then just transfer season, you're just like, oh my god, it's all choice. But no, in terms of hopes, I mean, I alluded to it earlier. My main thing is get more signed up. Like, if we were getting Mbappe or if we went in for Haaland or whatever, yeah, you could refreshen the team with one of the best of the next generation. But we were never paying 700, 600 grand a week to them two, and not making Mbappe a sporting director, manager, and president of whatever, Qatar or whatever. So yeah, get more signed up, because he's shown once he's rested, once he's 100% fit, he is one of the best players in the world. Obviously, it wasn't the story by the end of the season, but we mentioned he played every single minute, and AFCON destroyed him because he played 120 minutes 4 or 5 times. So get him signed up. I don't care about arguments about wage structure. I don't care. I really don't care. If he wants 300, 400 grand a week, he's earned it. It's not a new signing. It's not like we've bought Paul Pogba and given him 300 grand a week to be a lazy prick for Man United. This is a lad who we bought pretty cheap for about 30 to 40 million, if I remember correctly. And I think he's had 2 wage increases since then. I know he gets bonuses and he gets loads of money. But when people you see it on Twitter, you see it on TikTok, yada, 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 you see it, Mo Salah and Sadio Mane are paid less than this list of 20-odd people. And then you see crap names like, you see David De Gea on there. Like, David De Gea is a good person. He's a goalkeeper. He's not even the best goalkeeper in the league anymore. You saw Paul Pogba on it. You see Jack Grealish on there. It's like,
how?
It's a base wage, whatever. They've probably been earning more money than them, but a base wage guarantees it and almost makes it a reality. So I think we just have to give them the base wage. Maybe we give them less bonuses, but the way they play, they're getting the bonuses anyway. Just give them the base wage. We just got to sort it. And obviously, people will make the same argument for Sadio, but he seems more set on leaving, which is obviously a different. Mo's always said he wants to stay. It might change, obviously, but Mane seems set on leaving. I think other journals have said he probably wanted to leave a bit sooner, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, the buy-in stuff's not going away. So I think priority has to be replacing Mane as the number 9. And similarly to what you said, I kind of want a proper number 9, but Mane did well there. But at the same time, I was watching it and thinking, I miss peak Bobby Firmino. So yeah. I'm kind of flip-flopping. Do we need the proper 9, or do we need to find... Well, Nkunku is probably the one who's been linked, who is that midfielder / forward type person. So I'm kind of edging more towards the false 9 link-up player, because I want to see more back to his best. And I think his best, to be fair, was probably with Jota this season, which is strange. But I think his best overall was with Bobby. And it excites me to see what Diaz could do with a player like that as well. So if it's Nkunku or whatever, or we just find a time machine and whack Bobby in it, whatever works for me. But yeah, I think priority is more then finding a Mane replacement and then addressing the midfield, because Naby's on the last year of his deal. There's been the odd rumour about a new deal for him. Hendo, he's obviously in a new deal, but he is getting, I think he's 32.
Milner's got a year, am I right in thinking Milner's got a year?
Yeah, no, he was expiring, but Paul Joyce reported last night he's got a new deal, so it looks like Milner's staying. So maybe just one younger midfield, or not younger, but, well, it is younger, but better than... I'm talking over myself here, but we were linked with Tchouaméni. We want someone who's young and ready, rather than compare it to Jones, who's young and probably do with a loan. So yeah, if we get a bit younger in the team as well, but a first-team striker and a midfielder that could build into a bit, basically Konate in midfield. That's probably what we're looking for.
Nice, I like it. Just subtle adjustments, right? Nothing big and
not 12 people.
Yeah, we're not reactionary like that, because I think that kind of, for me, this season kind of signaled that we're great, but we could just do with a little bit more adjustments and a few more quality players in there just to kind of
5 subs next season as well, so we'll get to see more of Harvey and Curtis and stuff like that.
Yeah, which will be really exciting and also really, really great for their development as well, to see them getting some minutes as well. Guy, next season, what are your hopes and expectations? I mean, we kind of know who the front runner is and what we're dealing with, and we know what they've done in the transfer window. You've obviously you spoke about it on my section of the pod, so we need to address this now. What are Liverpool going to do? Liverpool have played every single game that was humanly possible this season, which is crazy in itself, and credit to them. So what are you feeling? What are you hoping? The league title, the Champions League? What do you think Klopp has set up as an objective?
I think his objective is always to win one of them. I think let's put it this way. I think you've got top level, win both of them, and then compete for both of them. I think we have to win one of them. I think the way Liverpool fans and some pundits and stuff talk about the team, it's almost close to becoming the best team that didn't succeed what it should have done. And it's almost at that stage anyway, but we have to win. Like I said it in the earlier bit, we fell back in love with the domestic cups. Like if we went on and won the League Cup next year, but the FA Cup kind of got put on the side again because it takes more of the season up, I'd be kind of all right with that as long as we won the Premier League or Champions League. I think we have to win one of them because we don't have the pots that this team deserves. Like Man City in the league, whatever. They've had the best squad for all this time. This season's probably the closest it's been. But the Champions League's our tournament. If we get to a final and lose, fair enough, especially if it's against Real Madrid, because they just don't lose finals. But I think we just need to win one of them. And I don't want to say acceptable, because that's basically been a bit of a bell end, but we just need to win one of them to do this team justice. So I'm just going to say win one of them.
Do you have a preference? Would you like it to be 20 for Liverpool, or would you like number 7?
Well, the Champions League final is in Istanbul, so that is fun. But we do need more Premier Leagues because it's still a bit of a meme. So I'd say Premier League, but once it gets to the end of next year, the Champions League's just special, isn't it? Once it gets to quarterfinals and semi-finals, you see them mad games. I'll end up saying Champions League, but I'll say Premier League now because it's not there. But I'll say Premier League.
Cool, I like it. Well, Guy Drinkel, thank you so much. Really enjoyed that little chat, and it's mad because obviously we record. I gave my answers first, and I'm looking at yours, and you want to copy someone's notes, and I'm like, damn, why did I say that? But yeah, it just goes to show what a remarkable season the Reds have had, and just how great they've been, and I'm really, really intrigued to see what the rest of some of our contributors and podcasters have to say and share on this pod as well. Right, guys, thank you so much for listening. This is going to be like a little series. So yeah, keep your ears open, and we will be back soon with some more excellent guests. Till next time, take care, and up the Reds.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.